If you would, please turn to Matthew chapter 26, verses 47 through 56. That's going to be our main text for this afternoon, but we will be hopping around to a couple different scriptures as we go along. Again, that's Matthew chapter 27, verses 47 through 56. I'm sorry, 26, not 27. So we'll start off reading that, and then we'll probably come back to it a little bit. And while he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude, with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now his betrayer had given them a sign, saying, Whomever I kiss, he is the one, seize him. Immediately he went up to Jesus and said, Greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. But Jesus said to him, Friend, why have you come? Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and took him. And suddenly one of those who were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword, struck the servant of the high priest, and cut off his ear. But Jesus said to him, Put your sword in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Or do you think that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he will provide me with more than 12 legions of angels? How then could the scriptures be fulfilled that it must happen thus? In that hour Jesus said to the multitudes, Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temples, and you did not seize me. But all this was done that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples forsook him and fled. So I got a couple of things I want to take away from this passage. First, we have Christ's meekness, and then we have his fulfillment of the scriptures, and then we have his wanting to save others. So we'll focus on meekness for right now. So he was meek, but he also demanded it of his disciples. Meekness is power under control. So in verse 53, he had the power to call down 12 legions of angels, which would have been enough to exterminate the whole earth, basically. And then when he was talking, we can see it in another account of this. It's in John's account, John 18:10. We can see that it's Peter who cuts off Malchus's ear. So he was demanding of Peter that he keep his power under control, if you will, what little he had. He was making sure to be a good example for them, like we ought to be for others, even if we do have the great ability to do something that may not harm someone, but say you want to show off to somebody, you should still keep that power under control. Then let's go to 57 through 64. 57 through 64 of that same chapter, Matthew 26, verses 57 through 64. And those who had laid hold of Jesus led him away to Caiaphas the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance to the high priest's courtyard, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Now the chief priests, the elders, and all the council sought false testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Even though many false witnesses came forward, they found none. But at last 2 false witnesses came forward and said, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days. Back then, if somebody said, I am able to destroy the temple, it was like this big issue because, the temple was the holy place before they actually acknowledged the church being made. And then 62, and the high priest rose and said to him, Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you? But Jesus kept silent, and the high priest answered and said to him, I put you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus said to him, It is as you said. Nevertheless, I say to you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven. One of the other things we can take away from this small passage is that he was also willing to be taken to an unjust trial, even though it was going to be, something that would make the crucifixion come upon him and make things very terrible for him. And I'm going to skip one point because I've only got a minute, maybe 2 left. So let's get down to Christ's fulfillment of the scriptures. So let's go to Isaiah 53 and verse 7. That's where you can find a good number of prophecies. It's Isaiah 53, verse 7. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, as a sheep before its shears is silent, so he opened not his mouth. Now this you would normally think that this is just talking about, a different person, but the he there is actually capitalized, so that is a good indicator that it was Christ. I'm not trying to say that it definitely is, but that is a very good indicator. But it's also prophesied, and then I think it's Psalms that he is also prophesied about a lot. And then if you want to go to Genesis chapter 3, verse 14 and 15, Genesis chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. So the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all the cattle and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Out of the two injuries, getting a bruise to the head was much worse than getting a bruise to the heel. I'm pretty sure. I fell down a whole bunch at the roller skating rink last night. I'm not sure about you guys, but yeah, I got plenty of those. So, but even though he was extremely well known, he was still compassionate and wanting to save those who were around him. Like we saw when he was talking to Judas, he called him still friend, even though Judas had already betrayed him. I'm going to finish this up real quick. Luke 23, verse 38. Luke 23, verse 38. We'll try to do this as quick as we can. Let's go down to verse 39, actually. Then one of the criminals who were hanged blasphemed him, saying, if you are the Christ, save yourself and us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, do you not even fear God, seeing you are under the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said to him, assuredly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. If he can do that much for a thief who was thought of as one of the most vile crimes back in that time, how much can he do for us? Thank you.